So how effective is OSINT gathering? Tim Tomes, a well-known and respected security researcher and penetration tester, developed a tool specifically designed to use OSINT to compromise target organizations. In an interview, Mr. Tomes shared this quote, "At times we've had valid authentication credentials for a target environment without sending a single packet to the network." This quote is based on actual penetration testing results, indicating that he was able to compromise target organizations without ever alerting defensive teams to his activity. This type of attack should be very concerning to organizations who depend heavily on their detective and responsive controls. OSINT is a key component of the Penetration Testing Execution Standard, or PTES. The PTES itself was developed by a number of security researchers and penetration testers, some of whom have been doing penetration testing since before the term was coined. The goal? To identify repeatable processes and procedures that pen testers can perform, and to ensure that when an organization engages a third party to perform a pen test, the third party will cover all the bases. PTES begins with pre-engagement interactions, such as defining scope, then continues with intelligence gathering, where the attacker begins profiling the target, developing threat models relevant to the target, identifying vulnerabilities within the target's network infrastructure and operational model, exploiting those vulnerabilities, and then performing post-exploitation activities such as lateral movement techniques to penetrate further into the client's internal network. Finally, the penetration tester generates a report to capture the activity that was conducted during the penetration test. What systems and applications were compromised? And more importantly, what recommendations does the tester have for the client to help prevent an actual attacker from compromising those same systems and applications? OSINT gathering is conducted in the intelligence gathering phase, close to the very beginning of a penetration test. Is OSINT gathering a one-size-fits-all venture? Absolutely not. There are multiple types, forms, and levels of OSINT, and the tools and techniques used during an engagement will vary. Why is this important? Let's suppose you work for a consulting company who hires you to perform a penetration test that's scoped at 80 hours of work. You could conceivably spend all 80 hours doing open source intelligence gathering, which wouldn't really help the client understand where exploitable vulnerabilities might exist. It's important to understand the types, forms, and levels of OSINT if you hope to scope your penetration test correctly. The PTES focuses on two key types of OSINT. Corporate OSINT, where the information gathered is relevant to the organization, and individual OSINT, where the information gathered is relevant to the people associated with the organization. This course focuses on the former, corporate OSINT gathering. There are three forms of OSINT that we'll be covering in this course. Passive information gathering is undetectable by the target organization. This form of OSINT doesn't leave any traces in the organization's event logs. Semi-passive information gathering is detectable, although it mimics normal network and application traffic. This form of OSINT will leave traces in the organization's event logs, but that activity is unlikely to trigger any security alerts. Active information gathering is not only detectable, but it may generate security alerts based on the organization's log monitoring configuration. This form of OSINT may tip your hand if you're trying to remain stealthy and avoid detection. The three levels of OSINT vary depending on the client's industry, organization size, and goals. If an organization is compliance-driven, for example, that organization is bound to demonstrate control effectiveness when it comes to protecting sensitive collections of data, such as credit card numbers, financial account numbers, or personally identifiable information. If an organization is conducting penetration testing as a matter of best practice, the effort associated with OSINT gathering will be more in-depth. This type of organization likely has a mature information security program, and they may have received requests from partners or customers to perform penetration tests. An organization that is trying to protect itself from state-sponsored actors requires the most in-depth OSINT gathering and related penetration testing activities. This type of organization could be responsible for critical national infrastructure, or they may find themselves subject to attack based on political motivations. To ensure we're allocating our time appropriately during a penetration test, we need to consider a few factors regarding target selection. Identification and naming of the target is critical, especially if an organization has multiple top-level domains or does business through subsidiaries. You'll want to closely review the scoping information provided by the client to confirm that you're not spending your time gathering information on an out-of-scope target. Reviewing the rules of engagement will also help to ensure that you're spending your time and resources on the right target. With an initial target list in place, you'll also want to revisit both the time length and the end goal of the penetration test. Prioritize those targets that, if compromised, are most likely to help you achieve the ultimate goal of the test in the most efficient manner possible. At this point, I imagine you'd like to ask the question, Jared, how long should we spend on gathering OSINT? I'm afraid I need to give you my least favorite answer to any question. It depends. Again, it's important for you as the penetration tester to spend time understanding the target so you can apply these techniques to scope and execute the penetration test appropriately. But as we move through this course, I'll be equipping you with the skills and techniques that will make you effective in doing just that.